Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you're all doing well. This is the show where we get under the hat of some of the most important topics in franchising. And this is a live show. Well, it's live if it's February the 4th, 2025, at about 5:15 in the UK for about 50 minutes or so. So if you're here live with us today, please drop a comment in because this show is for you. You are the producers, you're the directors of this show because the conversations go the way that you want them to go. So please pop in a comment, put in a question, say hello, and get involved in this conversation today. So what do we do? Each week on the show, we take a new topic and we have some lovely guests. And today is no exception to that. We've got two lovely guests. And the topic we've got today is franchise coaching. And to talk about that lovely subject, we have Rupert Hine and Nick Pleven. Gentlemen, welcome to the Franchise Show.
Hello, Harvey.
Thank you, Harvey.
You're very welcome. Well, look, let's start things off with a little introduction by both of you. A lot of people know Nick, but Nick, do a little introduction to yourself and what you do, and then we'll come to Rupert as well.
So I'm Nick Pleven. My company is eTalent. I've developed a system for recruitment which ensures consistency in the recruitment process, which of course is critical in franchising, but also in other businesses. And basically, it identifies soft skills of candidates and matches those to the job that they're applying for, and saves huge amounts of time as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nick. And Rupert, perhaps you could also give a little introduction to yourself and what it is that you do before we start getting into this one.
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. Yeah, I'm Rupert Hine. I'm a business coach working for my own business, but part of the world's #1 coaching firm, Action Coach. So I am a franchisee as well as a coach. So I'm a former veterinary surgeon turned civil servant turned business coach who's spent most of his career helping people build teams, challenging them to get more from themselves than they thought they could, and really trying to fight the situation that my father found himself in when he became self-employed and spent every hour God made working very hard and making very little money. So if we can solve that for most business owners, then that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to both of you for those introductions. Wow, that's a very varied career, Rupert, going from vet to civil servant to then coach. I mean, we were just saying before this went live that we've got various pets that are going to probably make an appearance for today's show, but at least if one of them falls ill, we can ask your advice as well. Didn't expect that. Great, fantastic. Well, look, we've already got somebody here. Let's say hello to Jason. Jason, I believe, is in the US, and he's put hello. Great to have you with us, Jason, as well. So let's get into this topic. Let's start with you, Rupert. What is coaching and how particularly can it be helpful in a franchise business? Maybe, how does it differ from mentors and other people that are going to help you in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that it's most simple. Coaching's there to provide your most unreasonable friend. So I like other coaches, we've got a huge toolkit. There's an element of experience that's probably closer to mentoring, but it's primarily about using the toolkit, but particularly helping the business owners that we work with join the dots in their mind, take the bits of information that they've already got, join them together, and have those sort of blinding flashes of the obvious, those sparks where they think, so that's what it actually means. So yeah, in the world of franchising, where businesses have got usually pretty structured ops manuals, they've got pretty structured toolkits of their own. It's helping them take that, apply it to their world, and create something that works for them and that they can build, and then help them to do slightly better than they believe they can do themselves.
Fantastic. A great description there, I think, of what a coach is and how somebody could help us. I think it's a particularly important conversation, particularly in franchising, because I think that there's a misconception. I mean, if you're a potential franchisee watching this, there's a misconception, I think, that when you become part of a franchise business, you get everything that you could possibly need, and that you don't really need a huge amount of skills or experience because you've got this proven system. But there's a big gap, and how you use that, and how you use the skills and experience that you do have to make this system work. You spoke there of a big toolkit, and I think that's really interesting, because I always think of a franchise business in that sense of having a sort of a toolkit, like you're a carpenter or a builder, but it's how you use those tools, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, let's bring you in on this. You've obviously got some great experiences with coaching. Obviously, you've got your systems that deal with recruitment. How does coaching sort of fit into your world?
Well, I suppose I come at this from both ends, because Rupert is my coach. I met Rupert about 3 years ago, and he's made a huge contribution to my business. And he really tries to keep me on point. He doesn't always succeed. You can see he agrees with that, but he certainly holds my feet to the fire. And I find that you'd think, well, why would that actually make a difference? But the fact is, it has made a huge difference. When I first met him, as I said, 3 years ago, my business was sort of struggling a bit. And over the last 3 years, it's changed dramatically. So, and I can only put that to the one thing that's changed, and that's Rupert. So that's really from my point of view. But the other thing, of course, is that we can work very well together, because as a coach, one of the things that Rupert does is he helps his clients not work in the business, but work on the business. So they work more on the business than in the business. And that, of course, means having to find people who will actually do the work for them. So that means recruitment. And that's where we also work together. And hopefully Rupert will tell you about that in a minute.
Fantastic. No, that's excellent. I mean, there's a lot of really valid things that I think you've said there that I think if you're a existing franchisee is going to resonate. The fact that you might be struggling as well, and I think it's really important for that to be something that you should be able to say freely as well, particularly on platforms like LinkedIn. I think sometimes people are guilty of just showing all of the good stuff that's happening, and actually, sometimes, and probably more often or not, it's an okay day, or it's a tricky day, actually, and you do struggle. And therefore, it's really important to be able to reach out to people, and find people that can help you, join those dots. I like that expression, actually, join the dots. No, it's fantastic. Tell us a little bit more, Rupert, about the detail and how coaching perhaps can work, because we've got a few different elements in franchising where coaching, I think, can fit in. We've got franchisors, we've got franchisees, and of course we've got the fantastic people that work with those franchisees or work in the head offices of the franchisors. So we've got, the talent and the staff that work there. How do you think that coaching fits into those different areas of the business?
I mean, I think if you boil it back, the substance of what the business is doing might be different. If you're a franchisor, your business is about delivering through your franchisees. It's about recruiting franchisees, supporting franchisees, building a great system and delivering it. If you're a franchisee, it's about building your own business to deliver whatever your franchise is set up to do. And then if you work in either of those, you're there supporting building your career within those organizations. The actual substance of the business has some basic similarities. Every business has got to attract new inquiries. They've got to convert them into clients. They've then got to deliver for them, and then they've got to collect the money afterwards. Now, most of us, when we go into business, we're good at part of that. We're not usually good at all of it. Great if we are. And quite often, you've alluded to it just now, quite often you start off, and if you're not careful, you focus on the stuff you're good at. And then you get into trouble because maybe you're really good at delivering the operational side. If you take Nick's business, helping people to recruit, but if you're less good at the marketing, or you're good at marketing but less good at sales, each of these can get you into a place where you start to struggle, and that's just about having the support. Sometimes it's the support, sometimes it's the reminder to go back to the system that you've got, and sometimes it's the little bit of challenge to just get on and do something that helps you get those done. When you're running that business, you need to look after the team. Great businesses have great engaged teams. That's sort of back to Nick's world. It's let's recruit the right people, put them in a great environment, and then keep them engaged. And that's the sort of the cultural piece. Culture is tough. It's good fun, but it's tough.
Definitely.
And it's all the sort of stuff we can work on at different points in the journey.
No, absolutely. Well, look, we've got a few comments coming in now. Some haven't come in yet, so I'm going to take them from another source here. But let's put up a few that we can see here. So this is actually one not from me, as it looks like, but it's one from Simon Wise. And he's put, "Hello, franchise friends. Great to have you with us, Simon. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on coaching and how that can help us in our business. And perhaps some of your experience in that as well." We have the lovely Penny Hopkinson with us. Penny has put, "Hello, Harvey, Nick and Rupert. Great to hear about franchise coaching." Well, thank you. And also, it's going to be fascinating to hear your thoughts on franchise coaching. We dealt with mentorship last week, so it'd be really good to understand your experiences of that. Going on to my phone here, where I can look at some other comments. We've got Lois from the Netherlands. Great to have you here. And we've also got Angela Coate here as well. Now, Angela is a specialist in field coach experts. So actually, and her comments come up. Look at that. Thank goodness for that. It was very difficult to read that and do this. So let's have a look at what Angela's got to say. First of all, Angela, welcome to the Franchise Show. Angela's put, "Sometimes we see franchisees resist coaching because they don't understand what it is. Nick, did you understand it right away, or did Rupert have to tap into some emotional, intelligent skills to get you to come around initially?" What do you make of that one then, Nick?
Well, it did take 2 or 3 meetings. Whether he went into some emotional intelligence techniques or not, well, he's obviously so skilled that I didn't notice. Because after about 3 meetings, I could see the benefits, and we just went ahead. So, yeah,
Fantastic.
I hope that explains it, Angela.
I think it does. Yes, I think it does. Let's pick up on a point that Rupert made earlier about engaged teams. So let's look at our staff in our business, our colleagues, and the people that work in our franchise businesses. Because number one, when you're trying to employ somebody and keep them engaged, you need to keep coaching and training and supporting. But perhaps we could touch upon that point now with Nick about how we kind of coach and how we bring coaching into that sort of recruitment side of things. Nick, sorry. Yeah, let's come to you. What I wanted to do was to understand how we keep our teams of people engaged using not just what you do, obviously, in your business, but perhaps how you think coaching can come into play, in the recruitment side of things.
Well, in the recruitment side of things, it's really helping the companies try understand what it is they're actually looking for, because it's very seldom a CV. It's much more to do with the type of person that you're looking to recruit and what skills they will bring, which are not necessarily hard skills but soft skills. And that's where a Rupert can help by looking at the big picture and being able to advise.
Absolutely. Let's have a look, because we've got a question that's come up here from Simon. So let's pop this one up on the screen. And Simon's put, shouldn't the coaching come from the franchisor and their boots on the ground rather than an external source? It's what you are paying for in your MSFs after all. I think this is an interesting one, because it's touching upon what we've said before, that there's an element of coaching, training, teaching that needs to come from the franchisor, but not everything, comes from there. Some of those soft skills that Nick often talks about, they're hard things to get from an ops manual or a franchise agreement or a training that comes from a franchisor. A franchisor is training you how to use the system, but not training you for skills and that you might need to run a business. Don't you think?
I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to what you need. So absolutely, great franchises provide plenty of support. It is absolutely one of the things that you're paying for, and great system, great support. When it comes to coaching, some of it's about the personal relationship. It's about having somebody you can confide in, somebody who will challenge you, and somebody that ultimately you can be absolutely candid and honest with. Now, depends on your relationship with your franchisor. It may well be that there are times when somebody inside the franchise can fulfill that role. It may be that on occasion you want somebody who's a third party. And I suppose the rule of thumb for me is it's about return on investment. Ultimately, a great business coach is going to get you a return on investment, and you go for the person that you believe and trust is going to get you that best return. And it's probably no more difficult than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've touched upon some really interesting things there, Rupert. I mean, one of the things that you said about challenging someone, and I can't remember the expression you used right at the beginning, something like an unreasonable friend, wasn't it?
Yep.
And I can concur with that. It's definitely unreasonable.
and of course, you've said there about honesty, challenging people, right? I mean, let's take both of your views on this, because I think that this is really important. I think sometimes, especially nice people, but I think everyone's guilty of just trying to give the positives of a situation, right? And sometimes you've got to tell someone how it is to set them down a new path. Perhaps get into that a little bit more, either of you, because you probably both experienced it from a different perspective here. But what does that mean, that being that unreasonable friend and challenging someone? Give us some examples of that.
Rupert, you're the one who's the unreasonable one.
Well, I suppose there's a few things. I mean, the first thing is what I'm looking to do all the time is judge how much support somebody needs and how much challenge they need. If I'm too supportive, then they don't grow. If I'm too challenging, it's just stressful. So it's keeping them at that sort of point of maximum performance. And sometimes it's about taking good news and helping them see, where can they go that little bit further. And I'll give you an example. I was doing a bit of planning with a client a little while ago, and we're starting off. We're going into the planning for the next quarter, and we're looking at what are their wins, what's gone really well. And they very proudly, their head of business development turned around and said, we've had a really good quarter. This is the end of quarter one. We're about 60% of the way towards our annual target for sales for this year. Absolutely fantastic. Well done. What's the new target? And I did a bit of mental arithmetic, gave him a slightly frightening figure. He turned pale, beat me down a little bit. And by the time they got to the year end, they had achieved twice what they'd expected to do that year. Now, that's it. It's just sort of pushing the expectation a little bit more than maybe they'd expected to.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I've been in sales for nearly 30 years, and that exactly what you said there reminds me as to why salespeople generally achieve about 110% of their target, not 150%. Because it's also really interesting what you said there about keeping that balance between support and enjoying it and the challenges. And again, if you're in that role of business development, and you do exceed that target by that huge amount, there's always a big part of you that says, well, if this is now the bar only goes up from there, and it can make it very stressful. So it's a very interesting discussion. No, I think it's important to get into that.
I mean, if I can go back to Simon's point about shouldn't it be the franchisor's role? Well, the franchisor, presumably they give you a model to work to, the things to do, how to run the business and so on. But the actual practicalities, day to day, dealing with people, dealing with issues, dealing with problems, that depends very much on the individual. And you can't put that in the manual because everyone's different. And I think that's where someone like Rupert can actually help with those individuals with their particular strengths and their particular weaknesses and advise them accordingly and keep them motivated. So I think there definitely is a role for a coach in addition to the franchisor's boots on the ground, as Simon puts it.
It's finding that balance between the external help and what is provided and what yourself. You've both alluded to the fact that you've got to identify where people's problems and skills, and that's pretty unique for each person. So I think you're absolutely right. Actually, very quickly, while I've put up that particular QR code on the screen, I've got to recognize our lovely friends at SEO Samba, because they do a list of franchise influencers. And guess what? I made the list. We made the list. As a show, we made the list. So we can pat ourselves on the back. We are influencing the franchise community. So big thank you to SEO Samba for putting that together for our wonderful community. Let's have a little look, because we've got a few more comments, and we've got a big one here coming in from Tim Morris. First of all, Tim, welcome to the Franchise Show, as always. Lovely chap. And Tim's put, very often we believe that the challenge is a franchisee not willing to listen or to follow the model. In reality, coaching franchisees is a very complex role. Support professionals must possess a full range of competencies which are able to address all the fears and challenges different franchisees will have. Being able to get to the root cause of why a franchisee is struggling in a particular area is a key element to this. What do you make of this one?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Like Tim's spot on. It's if somebody's not getting the performance that they're looking for, whether that's personally or whether that's the franchise, they're not getting the performance the franchise is looking for. There's usually something holding them back. Nobody comes to work to do a bad job. And working out what that is, getting to that root cause, and then helping them to come past that. Now, sometimes that's too many other distractions, or there's something that's they're fighting against. So sometimes it's something deeper, and it is absolutely let's find that problem, and then help them to manage it, and unlock them and let them free to fly.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It's very important to realize that these challenges are quite unique. And I think, again, we're all alluding to the fact that although you get given a model, and although the model is the same and the repetition of that model is part of what makes franchising successful, that you're doing that same thing again. People are very different, and day to day, people experience these different challenges. And coaching can be an excellent way to help people find ways to navigate that particular path. So I love it.
I guess the big advantage with working with people in franchises is that there is a system there that we know works. Whether it's working in the particular business at that time is a different matter, but we know that there's basically a system that can work. And so it means that there's always something procedurally that we can fall back on. But it's a bit like marketing. I mean, within the Action Coach franchise world, I've got a choice of 83 marketing strategies at my disposal. Now, I know that not all of those work for me. I know that some of the ones that work for me personally don't work for some of my colleagues, and vice versa. Or I could put it a different way and say some of the ones that I've managed to make work, or that I haven't managed to make work. So it's about choosing from the toolkit the things that suit the individual business we're working with. And sometimes, franchisees come up with great ideas that can develop the franchise. In which case, it's about encouraging them to feed that back up the chain and
Definitely.
and help develop the wider organization.
100%. I mean, if you can create an environment where you can let franchisees express their innovation and their ideas, they're not always going to be right. But, the more people that you have, particularly people that are in the business day to day, the more people that you have expressing those ideas and coming up with those ideas, then the greater that good can happen in the business in total. No, I think it's really interesting. I think one of the things that I was thinking about, because when I think of coaching, or when I think of something like action coaching, because I had an action coach many years ago as well, so I've been involved in this. But when I think of coaching, I think more of sort of struggling entrepreneurs that are on their own and are really sort of lost in working in the business. Do you think that things, I mean, we've alluded there with Tim and Simon, about the fact that you've got your franchise support staff in there as well, right? They're designed, to support people and coach people on an ongoing basis to make sure that they can work the model and the system. So look, let's say it's either an internal member of staff or it's a coach, right? But let's say it's an external coach for now, okay? And you've got a franchise business that's got 100 franchisees, all with different daily challenges. Do you think you're going to need one coach per franchisee? Because they've all got a very unique journey, or is there a way franchisors can apply coaching as a model, more sort of kind of people effective way or staff effective way?
I think there's definitely effective ways of doing it. I mean, it's coaching works both at an individual level and also in groups, and having support groups where you've got people sharing challenges and learning from each other, can be really powerful. It's ultimately it's about helping people discover the ways that they can make their business work. And we do quite a lot of group coaching. We do quite a lot of one-on-one coaching. It's just fitting in with the way that works for the organization or the group that we're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you've got a franchise business, you've got all these franchisees all having different experiences over those years. And therefore they can become coaches themselves in a way, because you just said there, discover ways that, something can work for you. Well, and you also said that there were 83 marketing strategies that you could choose from. And whether it's a marketing strategy or another element of a business you're working in, having the flexibility to choose something that's going to work for you is really important. Let's have a look, because we've got a few other questions coming in, and I'm always conscious of the fact that I like to get all of these questions in. So let's take one here from Simon. We've got another good one coming up from Angela, from Tim, and from Jason. But let's take Simon's question first. And Simon's put, what is the key criteria for selecting a business coach? And perhaps, Rupert, obviously you can answer this one, but Nick, perhaps we'll come to you as well, because when we're talking about selecting somebody and soft skills and how we do that, perhaps you could have an input into this question. And either of you, go on.
I'm not sure it's really down to soft skills. I think for me, it was to do with liking the person, respecting the person, and feeling that we could work together. And Rupert and I are completely different behavioral styles, so from that point of view, there's no real match at all. But actually, I think we work very well together. He keeps me on track, and I respect what he says. So I think it's got to be down to the fact you've really got to like and respect that individual, the strengths that they have in terms of the tools and so on. Those tend to be fairly uniform because they'll be part of the network. But it's down to how you get on with the individual and whether you feel you can take his advice or not. Would you agree with that, Rupert?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd boil it down to three things. I think the one that you've just talked about, Nick, is about trust. It's about trusting the relationship so that you can be open to ideas that you will. A business coaching relationship is a pretty close, trusting relationship. If it's not, then it's not going to work. So you've got to be prepared for that. So that relationship's going to be absolutely key. I think the second thing is, do you believe there's going to be a return on investment? And it's pretty simple. That's what's the difference that we're going to make to the business. And then the third one, which is maybe the wild card, I would say if you're looking to select a business coach, I'd always ask them who their coach is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's some really good advice there. And one thing you've mentioned twice, Rupert, is the expression return on investment. I'm going to touch on this one for a little bit, because again, if you're a franchisee or a franchisor or a member of a team, now we talk of return on investment monetary in one way, but there's also, perhaps a return on objectives that could be applied if you're a team member and the service of the coach has been provided by somebody else. But what do you mean by return on investment when people look at that? Is that a monetary thing, paying for the coach, or are there some deeper levels to it?
I think on the surface, absolutely, it's financial. I mean, we're all in business ultimately to make money. We've often got higher purposes that go alongside it, but the money's one of the key components there. So it's a useful measure because it's objective. I think for business owners, that might be in hard cash, that might be in time realized. Lots of business owners are working pretty long hours, and reducing those can have a pretty tangible benefit. And it might be that it's in terms of exit, if you're creating that business to sell on to somebody else at some point in the future. Whether that's selling your franchise at whatever level. In terms of team members, I think there's something there from the business point of view in terms of productivity, but there's also something in terms of your own skills and abilities. Ultimately, you can put some sort of monetized value on it. It's maybe slightly harder, except that it's about the productivity of the individual, whether for themselves or for the business. So, from my point of view, I'm going to come back to money, but that's more because it makes it easier for me to measure.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Let's have a look, because we've got quite a lot more questions coming in. So let's make sure that we get to these. We've got questions coming up. We're going to go to one from Angela now, but we've got questions coming up from Jason, from Tim, and from Simon. So we will get to those as well before we finish today. So let's have a little look at this one from Angela. Angela's put, one thing we see is that if an external coach doesn't understand franchising and the franchisee-franchisor relationship, they can side with the franchisee, which can be dangerous. This is a really good point, actually, especially when you're talking about an external coach, not necessarily action coach, because you are a franchise operation, which is fantastic. But it's a really, really good point here. Okay, because as a franchisee, you've got to make sure you follow that model. It's part of what makes franchising successful. You've got to stick within the boundaries of that, but do your absolute best within that. What's your view on this, particularly coming from an organization that is also a franchise?
I'd say if the coach is siding one way or the other, they're probably not doing their job. Ultimately, it's about being objective. And so for me, and yes, I mean, I have the benefit that I sort of understand that relationship because I'm in the middle of it, but it's not about taking sides in that relationship. It's about saying, well, here's the toolkit that's been provided. We know that works. We know that there are some rules that go with the franchise that you're in. So how do you take that framework and be as successful as possible? Ultimately, coaching's about getting the best out of the circumstances you're in. And if those are the circumstances, we're not going to fight against something we can't change, because that's wasted effort. We're going to fight for the things that we can change. So let's change those things. It's like anything. I mean, you talked earlier about sometimes we associate coaching with businesses that are struggling. Clearly, coaching works for businesses that are having a tough time. I'm going to say coaching's a bit like going to the gym. It's the gym for businesses. It'll take people who are relatively unfit and make them fitter. It'll take people who are athletes and take them to the next level of performance. You don't do that by introducing a fight in there that you don't need to have.
No, absolutely. I mean, you made some excellent points there, and I think it's really interesting if you're a franchisee or a franchisor to listen into this discussion, because within those limits, you can still coach. It's the reason why we have good franchisees, great franchisees, and struggling franchisees. They're all working in some way within the systems, but they're doing it in different ways. So everything has boundaries and rules. Even if you went to an entrepreneur who had their own business, there's still boundaries and rules that you coach within. I guess it's just understanding as a coach what those boundaries are, whether you're talking to a franchisee, an employee, or a franchisor, and making sure, like you say, you coach within those rules. Your analogy of using the gym was interesting, though, because if it was me, it would be you pay your gym membership and you never actually go. But hopefully it's not the same for coaching in that instance.
That's why you have the PT who turns up at your door and rings the doorbell at 5 in the morning and says, "You said you wanted to go running."
Exactly. There you go. Fantastic. Look, let's have a look at one here from Jason. Jason has put, it's extremely important to use data to evaluate strengths and weaknesses of franchisees and not resort to knee-jerk reactions. This is a great point. I think, because I think in any walks of life we do certain things and we go with our gut. We were talking earlier about how you choose a coach, and to a degree, you speak to someone and you see if you get on with them, and you do go with a feeling you might have in some parts of that. It's perhaps how we choose franchises, but we also really do need to evaluate some stuff and some data. I mean, perhaps, Nick, you might want to jump in on this because your business is all about this. It's all about evaluating some data and making that kind of digestible for people. What do you make of this one?
Well, if you're going to talk about strengths and weaknesses, then we have to go right to the beginning of the recruitment of franchisees and identifying what the particular soft skills, competencies, soft competencies of franchisees are, and then assessing those at the point of appointing them as franchisees, and then being able to say, well, are they actually delivering that or not? But the likelihood is that if you do assess them at the earlier stage, then you will have ticked that off. So I would say it goes right at the beginning of the recruitment process.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Nick. Let's have a little look here. We've got a comment here from Tim. Tim's put, there's definitely a place for business coaches to be used in addition to franchisor support, especially if franchisees require development in areas where the franchisor does not have a specific skill set to assist. I agree it's important that the coach is aligned to the franchise model. Well, that's great to hear, especially from Tim. Tim is a seasoned expert and enthusiast in our industry. And, I think it is interesting to see how external companies, coaches, whatever it may be, but we're talking about coaches here, fit into a model that, by all intents and purposes, is well supported with internal people. But it can make the difference between, using that model correctly or using it well and not so well. Everyone can be given the same toolkit, can't they? So, I love that. Let's have a look at one more because we are getting relatively close to the end. And actually, I forgot to tell you two gentlemen that we do something towards the end of this where you get to ask me a question. Okay, so we're going to spin the tables and you can get me back for this. We're also going to find out a little bit about you both as well. So we will come to that shortly. Let's have a look at what Simon said here. Simon's put, we don't recruit franchise support staff anymore. We recruit franchise business coaches. Interesting. And business performance coaches for our franchisor clients. Such is the shift in focus for most, driving enterprise value and royalty income through business performance skills and not insisting on the right bog roll in the office. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really interesting here. What do you make of this one, Rupert?
Yeah, I mean,
so you can see it. Oh, there it is.
I suppose if you boil it back, what's not to like? If you have a system that we know will help increase people's success in business, even if you just increase the dial, 1 or 2%. if you get every one of your franchisees to be 1 or 2% better, that improves their lives, it improves their bottom line, which improves the franchisor's bottom line.
Yeah.
So, it's we know. I saw a fabulous interview. I think it was Grant Cardone who was interviewing Anthony Hopkins, the actor, and asked him whether he had a coach. And Anthony Hopkins said, "No, I don't have a coach. I've got 8," because he's got his classical theatre acting coach and his film acting coach and his speaking coach and his singing coach and all. Because if you want to get better at something, choose someone who's going to help you get better at something.
Absolutely.
Are you suggesting I should have more than one coach, Rupert?
It's very interesting, but it's interesting because it deals with the fact that you need a specialist for a particular element of a business, or if you're somebody who needs different people for different parts of what you're doing, it's important to reach out. We are going to get to the last part of the show, but before we do that, I do want to welcome Alexis Neighbour to the show. Alexis, welcome to the Franchise Show. She's put, "Sorry, I am late to join." Well, it's no problem at all. Alexis is a franchise coach. So it would be great if you can put any comments into either YouTube or LinkedIn, even after this, because we can go back and we can look at them and we can still answer them. So please do that. And it's great to have you with us. So we have got to the part of the show where I am going to disappear from your screens momentarily, because this is the point where I switch hats. Okay, so what do you think? It's very nice, isn't it? Now, this is the part of the show where we're going to stop banging on about coaching and franchising and all that sort of thing. And we are going to find out a little bit about Nick and Rupert. Okay, this part of the show is brought to you by PJ Murphy and Son, bespoke British hatters, and they've made this beautiful specimen here. So I'm gonna come to you first, Rupert. Perhaps you could tell us something about yourself, a claim to fame, somebody famous you've met, what that car behind you is, anything you like. Tell us something, but it's not about coaching.
Well, if we take the car for inspiration, I mean, other than the fact that that's Lego, and I'm a frustrated amateur engineer, I spend far too much of my time playing with cars, although a lot of it is spent watching them or preparing to cut them into small pieces. So I do a lot of safety stuff within the world of motorsport. So anything from sitting at the side of race circuits, waiting for things to crash or catch fire, to doing the same out in forests and all sorts of stuff. So I suppose in the last 12 months, I helped run the UK round of Extreme E,
the fantastic
international electric cross-country.
Love it. Brilliant. And what about yourself, Nick? What is something that we don't know about Nick Plevin? Or have you met anyone famous?
Not that I can think of immediately, but when I was younger, I was working in Brussels for an American firm, and I reckon I was the first person in Europe to use an IBM PC.
Oh really?
Because our office was right next to the IBM head office in Brussels. And one day they brought this thing in and said, "We've got this newfangled thing sent over from the States. You want to play with it?" And it landed on my desk.
I love it. Oh, I've just got to put up a comment quickly from Barclay. He says, "Please don't say Alex is." I'm going to mispronounce it on purpose. My speaker is going nuts. I love it, Barclay. Great to have you with us as well. Well, look, just before we get to the final bit, I did promise you can ask me a question if you like. So either of you now get a chance to ask me a question if you want. Or if you don't, I'll let you get away with it.
What's your cat's name?
Okay, my cat's name is Pebbles, and he probably will be joining one of these things. He's meowing and scratching out there as we speak. So there you go. And what about you, Rupert? Have you got anything you want to ask me?
I suppose that it maybe harks back to the earlier conversation, which is possibly not allowed, but you talked about having a coach in past days.
I did.
What's your most memorable occasion whilst working with a coach?
I think it was that they gave me the book 7 Habits of Effective People by Stephen Covey. That and a 4-punch hole puncher as well. So not as but they were both very useful. But I think it's that book, which was a very interesting book. So there you go. Fantastic. Thank you so much, both of you. Now it only leaves us to talk about what's going to go on next week on the franchise show, and I am having a little look because I can't remember. So next Tuesday on the franchise show, we are going to be speaking about ethical franchising in Ireland. And we have the CEO of the Irish Franchise Academy coming on with the lovely Brandon Gano as well. So join us 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST on Tuesday the 11th for that one. And next week on Franchising Brand Stories, our sister show, we're going to have a week off this week. They've given me a week off. So next Thursday, the 13th of February, we're going to be talking to the lovely Paul Thompson, and we're going to be finding out what's under the hat of water babies. So that's going to be a great one. So please join us for both of those next week. So I'd like to thank everybody who's been here live with us today. You truly make this show what it is. I'd love to thank our wonderful guests, Rupert and Nick, for your time. Gentlemen, thank you very much for spending the time with us today. And until next time, my fine friends, take very good care. Cheerio.